The day is finally here, Levin. The 2025 schedule is out. We're going to dive into it and digest the 49ers slate from every possible angle. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard Podcast on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera alongside Levin Black. The 2025 schedule is out, Levin.
And that facial hair is like slightly more grown in now.
Yeah, thanks, man. Way to bring the show down immediately.
Hey, how is that bringing it down? I'm being positive.
Positive. You're a jackass. All right. Let's dive into the schedule. Everyone's had it now for a little while. There are a few things that jumped out to me. The first one being, Levin, Niners, I hope they've got the clear or, whatever it is to get through the airports, because 6 of their first 9 games are on the road.
Yeah, that stuck out to me. I noticed the 4 of 6. It didn't go as far as 6 of 9. And then I also noticed that 3 of the first 5 are division games, which is concerning considering how poorly the Niners start the season.
Well, but I don't know. I don't hate it necessarily.
I don't hate it. Okay, so overall, just blush reaction. It's not a terrible schedule. Could be much worse. But there are certain things that scare me, and that is starting with that many division games, 2 road games. Like, to me, there's a couple of clear, chances for things to crumble. They need to be 1-1. They got to win at Seattle or at New Orleans. They cannot drop to 0-2 with a division game being one of them and one of the worst teams in the NFL being another one. They got to be, I think, 3-2. I don't think they can afford to be 2-3. That would mean at least 2 losses in division in all likelihood. Like, I think they need to be 3-2. That's like this is not a team that does that. They've only really done that in 1 year.
Well, that's going to be the question, right? How quickly can they start? And more importantly, for Robert Saleh, who's going to be playing with a very young defense, how quickly can you get these guys to gel and get them acclimated? Now, you're playing Sam Darnold in week 1, but he's in a new system. I know he's a veteran quarterback, but he's in a new system, and he's really only had 1 good year. So that's not, necessarily the biggest of challenges. The Saints quarterback situation is a tire fire right now. So that's fantastic news for the defense.
Retirement fire.
Right. Kyler Murray in week 3. Kyler kind of cooked the Niners last year a little bit. So that's something that they're going to have to deal with. Then you've got Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry. I've never been a Trevor Lawrence guy. I know Liam Cohen is there. Big whoop. So in terms of quarterbacks for the first quarter of the season, 11, it's not exactly a murderer's row.
Right. There's opportunity there. There's definitely opportunity for this team to get the thing rolling in a 2019 way. And that's why I think that it's important that they do. I think they should be 3-1 going into that Rams game at the least. If they're 3-1, I think you're optimistic. You got things going. The second half of the schedule is by far the easier half of the schedule, in my opinion. So if they can start out well, I think you start building that confidence. Like you said, they got a lot of young guys. How do you build confidence in young guys? You go out there and win. That's the easiest way to do it. If they start poorly, though, that's where I'm concerned. You're starting poorly. This is already a team of veterans that I think at this point, if they start poorly, they're going to say, yep, the goose is cooked, right? I think that's a very important mental aspect to this team. Like, you got a lot of guys that have been around that had a lot of success. They saw how last year went. If you start out poorly, there's going to be that doubt coming in. I think it's important they start out well, considering, like, as you said, they face so many bad quarterbacks early on.
I don't know. I wonder about that. Will they just sort of pack it in? I'm not necessarily, I don't know if I disagree with you, but I'm not willing to agree with you right off the bat. I mean, they've had a lot of turnover on this team. Even look at Robert Saleh. I think the only guys he coached, these guys don't necessarily have the same scars as the other guys. And look, hopefully we don't even have to consider this reality once the season begins. But I hope that you're wrong on that part.
I hope I'm wrong that they start out poorly. I don't have a lot of faith in this team starting out well because, as we said, they've done it once. So It is what it is. I don't like their chances of coming back from a slow start, especially with a bye week that is so late. Like
Yeah.
that's normally when they've turned it around. Like the two times that they turned around a bad start in a big way was after the bye week. They have the latest bye week, so they don't have that opportunity to kind of get that reset, get that Kyle Shanahan bye week where he spends the whole week going through film of the other teams, figures out everything they're doing, and comes out to thwart that. So that's those are the concerns, right? I think there's a lot of positive in this schedule. As I said, I think it's a pretty good schedule, but those are the concerns.
Yeah, the week 14 bye, as you said, is the latest you can have a bye week. I don't hate it. I like it to be more in the middle just because, it's sort of balanced out. The one negative of not having it early is that could have been one of the Ayuk weeks, right? Like one of the weeks that you were going to have to burn before he got back could have been a bye week. That's not going to be the case. In fact, it might be the worst possible week for him because right when he's like getting into the flow of the game, he might have an off week. But hey, it is what it is.
Now, I know you were on another show immediately before this. Did you guys notice the biggest positive? It would have
Yeah,
taken some research. That's why I'm not sure you would have been able to do it live.
I was on the Bleacher Report app with Michelle Majuk. We do every Monday and Wednesday on that app. I don't know. What is the biggest positive?
They do not face a single team coming off a bye week.
Really? Okay, so I did not have
I
time to.
went through each game. Yeah, I had enough time. So I went through each opponent starting in week 4 all the way through, week 14. I even actually went to week 15 just to double check myself.
Mhm.
And they do not face a single team coming off a bye. Oddly, they face like 4 teams that it's their second week from a bye, but that doesn't matter. Once you have a game, like the advantage of having a bye week is gone.
I completely agree. And last year, they played 4 teams coming off a bye week, which was the most in the NFL. Nobody played more than that. So that was definitely a thing. I haven't seen yet the rest differential because, again, I haven't had time to sort of dig into the nitty gritty because this has been a sort of a shotgun start for me, like you said. But that is fantastic.
They got to be in the positive for rest because, like I said, they don't face a single team coming off bye. Whereas obviously they will face a team after coming off a bye, so that's a 7-day advantage just right there.
They do have some early body clock games. I think they have 5 early body clock games. Week 2 is an early body clock game against the Saints.
Well, so the Saints are central. So what do you consider early body clock? Are you saying only East Coast, or do you include Central in it?
Well, I'm including Central. The game still starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Fair
By
enough.
the way, Chris Maldonado, YouTube channel member for 23 months. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that support. Says we have to start fast and let's pray for health. Yeah, that's going to be, if they're healthy, they should mop up this schedule. They should, but they are never healthy. That's the problem with this team. They have been the top 10 most injured team every year of the Shanahan era except one. And the one year that they weren't was 2023, and they kicked everybody's ass and went to the Super Bowl. So if they are healthy, they're going to dominate, but they're just never healthy.
Yeah, I would venture a guess. I know in terms of record last year, I don't value that a whole heck of a lot because NFL changes so much year to year. But I know they were one of the easiest, if not the easiest, depending on how you want to look at it. With the way the schedule went down, and like I said, not playing teams coming off bye and things like that, I would say that they are very likely to have on paper the easiest schedule in the NFL.
Oh, they do. If you go by records the previous year and if you go by projected win totals for 2025, whatever way you slice it, the 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Hooray. I don't care. I don't apologize for it. I don't, anything. Give me the easiest schedule. I hope every quarterback they play is sick that week. I don't care.
Yeah, I will take the easiest path to get to the Super Bowl. I don't care. It's nobody remembers any of that. If you win
Right.
the Super Bowl, that's all that nobody remembers. Oh, that World Series team. Yeah, all the good teams got beat before they had. Nobody remembers that stuff. All
Nope.
they remember is who won and who lost the championship.
And this is a good quote from Kyle Posey, or a good point. He says 6 first or second year quarterbacks on the schedule. East Coast trips with a 10 a.m. West Coast start are versus the Saints and the Giants, the Jaguars, the Browns, the football gods are begging the 49ers to make the playoffs, according to KP. He's right, Levin. He is right. Between the teams on their slate and sort of the way it is laid out over the 18 weeks, this is a gift from the gods. There's no other way to look at it.
Yeah. What is he saying about the Jaguars? Because that's a home game. I'm not sure why the Jaguars and Browns were broken out on their own individual line.
I think just because they're the Jaguars and the Browns.
Okay. I didn't know why he listed the first two, and then he went to those two. But yeah, the Jacksonville's a home game, so that's even better. They got one bad road trip, and that's at Houston, followed the very next week at New York Giants. So that's like there's no ability to stay somewhere in between. Not that they want to do that anymore, anyways. But like you're talking Houston, Texas to New York, it's just a massive amount of travel. It's a long trip to go from San Francisco to Houston, and literally the longest possible in the NFL to go from San Francisco to New York for the 49ers.
There's a point I want to make about that, but first, I don't know if I read this comment from Antonio, and he's a YouTube channel member, so I want to make sure I do. It says ceiling 12-5, floor 8-9, prediction 11-6. That is the most reassuring thing, is that even if everything doesn't go perfectly for the Niners, the floor, you still think they should be in the mix. So I agree with Antonio there. You mentioned the not wanting to stay over. Oh, were you going to say something?
I was going to say I don't agree with that floor, considering they won 6 games last year. The
True.
floor is worst case scenario. Purdy gets hurt. They're lucky to win 6.
Yeah.
I don't care for the backup situation. You know what I mean? You're still talking backup quarterbacks. They lose. They have injuries like last year where Purdy's mostly healthy, but everybody else is hurt. Like 6 wins is probably the floor.
Well, and I know that this is dangerous, but I will say, like, last year was almost as bad as 2020 when we're talking injuries. The Niners were the most injured team in the league, according to games lost, and it was horrible. It wasn't quite as bad as 2020. Let me see. Last year, they lost 141.2 games. 2020 was 161, but still it was most in the NFL last year. That's how bad. It wasn't just like 1 or 2 guys that got hurt. Like that wouldn't have been enough to derail the season. It was so many people, and Fred Warner played the whole year on a fractured ankle. PS, like it took all of that to get them to 6-11. If they have a couple of guys injured this year, it shouldn't matter.
No, it shouldn't matter if it's a couple of guys. I would argue, I think the best way to put it last year is it's worst case scenario while still getting your quarterback for a majority of games. Obviously, like if you lose your quarterback for every single game, that's probably worse than what the 49ers had, because losing your quarterback matters so much. But they lost pretty much everybody else of importance for parts of the season. Like Bosa, you could argue like he played hurt pretty much all year and he wasn't himself. So yes, he played most games, but he wasn't himself. But they lost Ayuk. They lost, Christian McCaffrey was nothing. Trent Williams missed a majority of the season. Like where they got hit was as bad as they could possibly get hit, other than obviously losing the quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. But that second thing you said about the layover, we had heard that the 49ers, they used to do that, obviously, and then they stopped. And it was because a lot of the veterans on the team didn't really like it. It had kind of worn thin because it had been something that they had done for multiple years. I almost wonder if Kyle is just like, you know what? Like, we're not that team anymore. Like, yeah, I would grant you that when we were making the NFC Championship game every year, but we just missed the playoffs. I'm doing what's best. If you don't like it, tough. We're staying on the East Coast between that Texans and that Giants game.
I would argue that if your team is not supportive of that, then what is best is coming home. If your team's going to be pissed and grumpy and mad about staying, then it's going to be a negative, not a positive. It's one of those things that if your team is up for it, your team wants to do it, then you can do it. But if your team doesn't want to, like, it's no different than like having a job where you get told, hey, we got this major project going on. We don't care about your family. You're going to work every day for the next 2 weeks. Nobody likes that.
They don't have to like it. It might still be good for them, even if they don't like it. Your kids don't like eating vegetables, but you still feed them to them, don't you?
I don't think that's a good analogy.
I think it's a perfect analogy.
If people are mad that they're there and they're wanting to go home, that's what you call a distraction.
Here's the thing with the whether or not they should stay. You don't avoid the kind of jet lag. If you stay out there, you just delay it to before the Rams game. That's
Right.
really that's like, and the Niners themselves have said this. Like, yeah, it's great for when you play that second game and you don't have to fly across the country, but then you fly across the country after that and you've been in one time zone for multiple weeks. So like it's unavoidable. You just choose when you want to feel that kind of jet lag, essentially.
Yeah, and I would rather feel the jet lag facing the Giants than
Right.
facing the Rams.
That's the thing, because that Rams game, obviously, that's going to be huge, and you want to be as rested and healthy and focused and everything on that game. Because let's be honest, that's going to be a massive game, regardless of what they do against the Rams in Week 5. Right? If they win, then it's your chance to win the tiebreaker against the Rams, which could decide the NFC West. And of course, if they lose that game in Week 5, well, then it's like, well, hell, we can't drop both games. So no matter what happens, that November 9th game is going to be massive.
It's a big game. The Thursday night football game against the Rams early on, I think, is a big swing game. I already mentioned, like, they need to start 3-2. If they go into that game 2-2, they need to win that, in my opinion. I think the Tampa game after that on the road, East Coast, that's a hard thing. If you fall to the Rams and then you got to go to the East Coast against a playoff caliber team, who, by the way, Mayfield was lighting them up last year, then I think that's a tough sell. Now, granted, they do get extra rest before Tampa, and so I think that helps a little bit. But I do think both Ram games are big. But in my quick prediction, just writing down my wins losses after seeing the schedule, I don't have them doing well in the division.
Do you have them splitting the division?
No, I have them going 2-4 in the division. I have them losing twice to Arizona.
You could go 2-4 in the division and still make the playoffs. You can't be worse than that. But the rest of the schedule, you basically have to win all the other games pretty much, but they could.
I do have them 10-7, so I think that would probably get them in the playoffs. You run into tiebreakers, but I don't think this team is nearly as good as they once were. So I have a hard time saying, oh yeah, this is an 11-win team.
It's a new team. They don't have to be as good as they once were, right? They don't have to be as good as the 2023 team. They just have to be better than 6-11. I don't think they'll ever be, I shouldn't say ever. It would be stunning to me if they were better than the 2023 team anytime soon. But they could still be much better than the team they were last year because their schedule is friggin' soft as hell.
Well, yeah, and that's why the goal this season, all I care about is they make the playoffs. Just make the playoffs, and I'm satisfied with what the season ends up. What happens in the playoffs after that happens in the playoffs. Maybe these rookies have stepped up, and you get, you struggle early on, and somehow they turn it around. They get to 10-7, they get in the playoffs, and you got, like Michael Williams has blossomed, and now you really got those two bookends and a dangerous defense that can force turnovers and all sorts of havoc in the playoffs. Like we saw the Giants win 2 Super Bowls off of, hey, we have this quarterback that can make an amazing play when needed. He might be mediocre most of the time, but he's, as we talked about previous week, clutch when it matters. And then they had a dominant defensive line. And that's what you need to win. Like people say, the league has changed. It's quarterback driven. If you look at a lot of the champions, they had dominant defensive lines. Now, I'm not saying that's complete. There are teams that won solely because of the quarterback, and the Chiefs are a good example of that. But even the Chiefs have, like, Chris Jones is a game wrecker.
Game wrecker. Absolutely. And by the way, since you mentioned Michael Williams, we got a little bit of good news. As Brad Jones points out, his deal is signed, sealed, delivered, baby.
Nice.
Fully guaranteed, $24.943 million. Gets about $15 million in a signing bonus. Congratulations, Michael Williams. Not a huge, not something we were expecting this deal to get done, but still, it's done. And there's no headache, right? So that's obviously a good thing. We didn't get the alternate jersey, reveal yet, Levin. I've been waiting for that. But we didn't, no news right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen any rumors or anything about it. I will say one of the best things the NFL has done in recent years is the rookie salary cap. because
Wage scale,
I don't stress about it anymore. It used to be you draft a guy and you just sit there going, all right, is he signed yet? And you start getting nervous the closer and closer it gets to, June, especially in July, it starts to pick up. Like, I hated that. Like, the guy hasn't done anything, and you're sitting there begging the guy to sign a contract that makes him tons of money. I'm so glad they have a rookie salary cap. It's no longer an issue. If you don't want to sign your rookie deal, you're just stupid. You don't have any power. What are you going to argue?
They're pretty much boilerplate at this point of the year. A couple other comments I want to get to. Let me just throw the schedule back up on the screen. Jeremy says, Browns game in possible weather could be a trap game. We need to start fast to cover slipping in later games. Yeah, in terms of just like, and look, this is a thing. You might get mad about it, but Brock Purdy playing in the elements is a thing. And so you look at the schedule towards the end of the year, Cleveland, obviously in Cleveland, that could be a messy game. Just rain, wind, snow. Who the hell knows what you're going to get in Cleveland? But you're playing home against Tennessee. You're in a dome against Indianapolis. You're playing home against the Bears. Again, you're playing home against the Seahawks. Obviously, it could rain anywhere. But in terms of the slate at the end of the year, that's pretty good weather-wise.
Yeah, there's really only one game with, I would say, a chance of snow. Well, I guess technically Tennessee has a chance of snow. My in-laws moved to Nashville like a handful of years ago, and they've gotten more snow than Pittsburgh has gotten in recent years. But really, the Cleveland is the only one, because even before that, you get into November, Carolina, you're not going to get snow. Arizona, you're not going to get snow. Now you're into the beginning of November, and it's still, LA, New York. Technically, you could have snow November 2nd, but that would be a very rare thing. So, yeah, from a weather perspective, that is one thing I had not looked at. But from a weather perspective, this is a very good schedule, because even like early on in the season, when weather can be miserable, you got New Orleans is a dome, Jacksonville's at home. You're not doing that terrible weather. The only one that's potential, I would say, that would throw them off is going to Tampa in October, because you might still be in the 80s there, and that might throw them off.
Yeah, but you don't have to worry about Brock not being able to hold on to the ball. That's what I'm worried about. The Giants game November 2nd could be dicey. That'll be in New Jersey, technically. But other than that, like weather-wise, and it is a thing. It just is. You could get mad about it, but we have seen it has happened too many times with Brock Purdy. So the Niners, again, it's another thing in their favor when it comes to this schedule that seems to be lining up. Like there is a clear runway to the playoffs. So we'll see if the 49ers plane can actually take it and get back to where we all want to be. Couple other comments. Nick Ellert says, interesting note for Levin, 3 teams have 0 primetime games. Saints, Titans, Browns, and Niners face all of them. And how about the NFL? The NFL is telling you they still expect the 49ers to be good, because they have 5 primetime games. And that is
it's about ratings, not necessarily how good they are. The Niners are popular. They bring in ratings. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's about them trying to get the best teams. It's who do they think will get the most viewers, and that's not always the same thing. Usually is, not always.
Dude, a few years ago, they flexed Niners Cowboys out of Sunday Night Football. Okay. Like, if you're not good, they're not putting you in prime time. The Niners are still in prime time as much as you can be. I think that the league is telling you they still think they're going to be good. Now, they could flex some of those. Yes. But
I was going to say, you can say that, but I wrote down WTF about one thing on this schedule. Can you guess at what that is?
Why are they playing in prime time against the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah. What the heck is that, a Monday Night Football game? If you want to try to throw Carolina a bone and give them a primetime game, make it a late season Sunday Night Football game that, hey, sorry you were a 3-win team. We flexed you out. That's on you. We gave you a chance. You know what I mean? But yeah, that game, like, there's no rivalry there. There's no, like, why is that a Monday night, whatever?
Even the Sunday night game against the Falcons, I was like, really? I mean, maybe the Falcons will be good, but I don't see it right now, to be honest with you. I think a Tampa game, which would have been a much better choice for a primetime game. That's an early body clock game for the 49ers. I knew they would put one of the division games in primetime on a Thursday. They decided to put the Rams game. I totally get that. That's That makes sense to me. The Bears game makes sense, right? You've got the number 1 overall draft pick in Caleb Williams. You've got Ben Johnson. You think that he's going to, build them up. I totally get that. But the Panthers ones and the Falcons ones, I was like, I don't know about this.
Yeah. You know who's happiest about this schedule?
No, who?
Our spouses. There is no holiday game.
God, thank God. They did it to the Cowboys this year. They play on Thanksgiving. Of course, they play on Thanksgiving every year, but they play on Christmas also. Not so for the 49ers. Great, because that messed up my whole friggin' family thing that year. They played on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve.
Yeah, and they don't have any of that this year. The schedule, I mean, granted, the holidays don't really quite fall. Obviously, Thanksgiving is a big football game, but the Niners playing on Thanksgiving is going to be a very rare thing because half the spots are guaranteed to teams that play pretty much every single year. And those teams, the Niners don't necessarily play all that often. But the way the schedule, like Christmas is in the middle of the week, things like that, like this is a very good schedule for holidays. Like even Halloween, like I would be so mad if the Niners had a primetime game on Halloween. Because Halloween's big for me. It's my favorite holiday. But Halloween's in the middle of the week, so it's not even possible.
Yeah, Halloween. And now in my house is big because I got 2 young kids. So Halloween is even a much bigger deal. I was talking earlier in the show about the defense, right? And how the Niners have a lot of road games early, and it could be a test for the defense. The run defense specifically is something I want to see. And I'm looking, and they've got James Conner in week 3. James Conner destroys the 49ers on the ground when he plays them. I don't know what it is, but he steamrolls the 49ers. That is a nice test for Robert Saleh and Michael Williams and Alfred Collins and all these guys early in the season, week 3 against the Cardinals. What do you do against the guy that has owned you? Is it really going to be different? Because he has flattened the 49ers, Levin.
I just think James Conner is stronger than the defenders that the Niners have had.
But we got some new ones now.
That's what it is. Conner breaks their tackles. There's nothing else to it. Conner's not a flashy running back. He's kind of cut and dry. He's one of those guys that, to me, is kind of like a Joe Mixon. There's nothing special about him, but there's nothing that's necessarily a weakness either. Mm-hmm. You can't quite put your finger on why does this guy produce every single year, but at the same time, he produces every single year.
I can't explain it, but it just happens. It's like a bee flying.
Well, he's not fast. He's not the strongest running back out there. He doesn't catch well. He's not truly a dual threat. It's not like he's making guys miss. It's like he does everything good, but nothing. I can't put my finger on it. Yet every year he ends up being really good.
Yeah, I would love to see him just get absolutely stonewalled. Even last year, they played one of the games, and in the first half, he did nothing. And you were like, oh, great, we finally got James Conner under control. And then the second half, he torched us. So, yeah, I don't really want to see any more of that. Nick Ellert says, oh, no, my wife's 50th birthday is week 2.
Just tell her she's past her prime and the Niners are more important. You're over the hill. We're going to prioritize the Niners, okay? It's week 2. They're not over the hill. We don't know what's going to happen yet. We're going to concentrate on what's going uphill still.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nick, if you do that, you won't have to worry about the 51st birthday because you won't be around to see it. So you can do anything once, as one of my old bosses once said. There was another point I wanted to make. Now I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure it was just utterly brilliant.
Yeah, I bet you were not wrong about it too.
And Mr. J says, James Conner, he's not that good. Stop making him feel like the Terminator. That's the thing. He's not that good, but against the 49ers, he is. He kills us. That's the frustrating part.
Like I said, he doesn't do any. He's not going to make the Hall of Fame. He's like Joe Mixon. Every year you look at the end of the year and you're like, oh, he had like 1,200 yards. He had a good year. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird consistency, but not a good enough consistency to where anybody thinks he's a star or that he's going to make the Hall of Fame, but he does produce consistently.
It's incredibly annoying. I want to see how they do against James Conner. Bijan Robinson, That's obviously going to be a huge test for the 49ers rush defense. The Rams have a few different guys. Bucky Irving for Tampa Bay is another running back. Like, in terms of running backs, the Niners are going to have some tests this year, and it has to get better. And that was their entire focus of the draft. So that'll be one thing I have my eye on early in the schedule. Even that Saints game, their quarterback situation is so bad, they'll give Alvin Kamara 1,000 touches.
You know the best way to thwart an opponent's run game, right?
Get up by 1,000,000 points so they have to pass.
Yeah. Be winning. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Well, and honestly, that was really how the 49ers were built and how they attacked teams for this little mini run that they went on, is that they would just keep piling on points and points and points, and then you wouldn't be able to run. And then you'd have to pass, and the 4 down linemen would get after you and pressure you, and they'd have 7 in coverage, and you were cooked because you weren't going to be able to throw against that because they never had to blitz. That's still what they want to do. They just, we don't know if they'll be able to do it. They certainly weren't able to do it last year.
Yeah, the team was a front-running team in more ways than one.
Oh, I thought you were going to keep talking.
No, that they didn't like to be called that, especially Debo, but that's what they were. When the going was good, they would turn dominant. When the going was bad, they did not do well. They did not handle it well.
They were built to win really one specific way. And when it didn't get that way, they didn't look nearly as dominant as they had in the past. And God knows they had certainly looked dominant many, many times. Are they built to win any differently this year? Or do you still think they have sort of one narrow path to victory?
Is CMC healthy?
Theoretically.
Yeah, if he's healthy, they got more ways to win than one. But no, I think they are different. They did address the defensive line in a big way. Whereas I think going into, especially like last year, the secondary was the leader of that defense. You know, you had what you thought was going to be a really good secondary because you had an all-pro safety coming back. You had a second-year safety who showed flashes as a rookie, and you had 2 corners that you thought were really good. Now, things didn't work out that way. The all-pro safety got hurt again. Mm-hmm. The second-year player turned out to be a kind of a flash in the pan. He fell back rather than stepping forward, and one of the corners had personal issues that caused it to be somewhat of a lost season for him.
Last year was just a miserable. I mean, you mentioned the personal issues. Not even just Charvarius Ward. Trent Williams had horrible personal issues, obviously, losing small children. Yeah. Ricky Pearsall, that goes without saying, getting shot through the chest. I don't mean to laugh, but when you say it out loud,
it's insane. And insane. I'll be honest, like when I was I was there in San Francisco later that year on my California vacation, and I remember like we were just looking for somewhere to I was wanting to get like some Niner clothes. I was like, oh, there's a mall down here, and I didn't even realize that it was the same place until I was coming out, and I was like, wait a second, this is where that happened? How the heck did that happen here?
It's crazy. The whole thing is bizarre. And even like that, again, no one thing excuses what we saw last year with the 6-11. It wasn't just the rest differential or the personal tragedies or the injuries. It was all.
It wasn't just players either. It wasn't just player-related things. Coaching was not great either.
Yeah, it was all of it. And that's how you get a 6-11 season with a roster that was, as good as the one the 49ers had. I saw a comment here, Levin, not to switch gears. Greatness 54 YouTube channel member said the 49ers social media teams are bummed. I didn't see their schedule release video. I know that it doesn't feature Steph Sanchez this year because I asked specifically. I don't know what it is.
I didn't see the video. I can say their schedule release article. I scrolled through it once and went, no, F this. I'm going to a different site. Because instead of just giving you the dang schedule, like literally, I guarantee the NFL gave a template for teams to use. Because when I was going and looking at all the opponents to see if they were facing anybody coming off a bye, like 7 of the teams had the exact same like Excel kind of format of what the schedule was in the exact same like sizing to where like I had to scroll over to see the opponents a little bit. It was like identical how big that was. The 49ers broke up each game and had like lengthy paragraphs and key points about each game, like little snippets of facts about each game to where like it takes you forever to go through and you can't just quickly look and know what the schedule is. You know what I mean? You can't look and go, oh, okay, they play that team and then that team. It's like you play that team and then you got to skip 4 paragraphs down. Oh, okay, there's the second game. Yeah.
I want the information. Just give me what I need to know, and then we can add all that other stuff after. It looks
Exactly.
like the 49ers social media team put together
Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail type schedule release video, like an 8-bit Oregon Trail type thing. They're calling
I
it
don't hate it.
No, it's not terrible. It's not like wowing me, but I think it's acceptable. It's not as good as the one last year. I'll say that. I mean, how you can
I can see how that I saw it was 5 minutes and 10 seconds long. I could see how that would get old after a while.
Right. It's like, okay, we get the thing. Diego Figueroa says, Rob, confess. Have you seen the jerseys or what was your Twitter GIF for? So yeah, I tweeted out a GIF. I didn't realize that this was going to cause as much of a
Did you pull a Debo?
No, I don't think I did.
You posted something cryptic and then you were like, it has nothing to do with that. What are you talking about?
No, I posted something cryptic and I thought everyone would knew what I was talking about and I was wrong. I just tweeted the gif of Will Ferrell as Mugatu from Zoolander when he says, "Dear God, it's beautiful." I was tweeting that out because things in the schedule were leaking and I was liking what I was seeing with the 49ers schedule. People thought that I had seen the jerseys and I was responding that it was about the football jerseys. So I did not realize that that's how people would take it. But that's what the tweet was about. It was about the schedule leaks, not about the jerseys, which I haven't seen. Although, Levin, if you noticed in that video with that the Niners social media team put out, the guy had a black 49ers hoodie on with the old school SF logo on the back. I can't help but wonder if the alternate jersey is going to be black.
I wouldn't mind. Like I said, I liked the black and red jerseys.
Oh, God. No.
I liked them.
And did you see the brand refresh thing that the 49ers put out on Tuesday? One of their colors that they list in this brand refresh is primetime black. And I was like, oh, God, please tell me they're not getting a black jersey to wear for primetime games.
Yeah, for primetime games. I mean, that's when they did them before, and they weren't, if I remember correctly, they never lost in primetime wearing that jersey.
Well, I know the first time they wore it, that was the season opener, and
that was the Carlos Hyde game where everybody thought, oh, they got somebody here. Never mind.
Yeah, I always like Carlos Hyde. There are the color Heritage Cream, Montana Red, Gold Rush Gradient, and Primetime Black are the 4 colors. The Niners are being like, is this a new logo? They're not saying specifically what these apply to.
The cream is interesting because
I like it.
It's white usually. You know what I mean? So
they did also say that white is still part of it. It says on the actual website, they say these shades will also complement the color white, which is a mainstay within the 49ers uniform. But I like all of this stuff that they released on the website. I love the new colors. I love the floating SF logo. I think that's awesome. I think it's like really cool that they have the black, the red, and then the golden one. I think is like everything that they announced works, but I haven't seen the jerseys yet. But I would not be shocked if they were black. I'll tell you that.
Maybe black and gold this time.
But then you're the Saints. See,
I was going to say they can't do that because they're going to be too similar to teams that exist.
Nick Allard says to watch the last 30 seconds of the schedule release video. I guess I'll have to go and do that. I don't like the black, and I think that it's hard to do something different with the 49ers uniforms than what they already have. Because if you do anything different, it's too much like other teams. Black and gold, oh, that's the Saints. If you do more white and red, that's the Cardinals. If you do, what are you going to do? Are you going to do, you could do what? I don't know. That's the thing. It's just a tricky kind of color scheme.
I think it's also your regular jerseys are so good. And then you have a throwback that's iconic already.
Yes.
With the 80s. Niners. So it's like you're facing an uphill battle of getting something that people are going to like, because a lot of people are going to say, I don't care for alternates at all. And because the regular jerseys are so good. And others are going to say, why didn't you just do the 80s? Those are the awesome jerseys. Those are the dynasty jerseys. You know what I mean? So you got to have something special, but I don't know what that is. That's one of the reasons why I like the black and red. One, I like just black and red, but it was also something truly different.
Okay, so I just watched the last 30 seconds of that video while you were talking.
Yeah,
you
weren't listening. I got you.
No, I wasn't. And apparently the guy in the video like wins a prize at the game that he was playing, and it's a box, and he opens the box, and it like there's like glowing on his face, and he's like, whoa. So it's like hinting at the jersey, but we don't actually know.
Oh, I thought that was hinting at like a Super Bowl ring. At the end of the game, he actually won a Super Bowl ring.
He does. It does have like a kind of a golden glow when he opens.
It's the all gold again.
Could it be an all? I hope it's not. That's my one wish.
That's my least favorite jersey. I did not like the all golds.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like that at all. It reminded me of Pulp Fiction when they opened the briefcase and everyone's like, oh, and the light shines on their face. That's what it looked like in the schedule
It
release.
just looked like their gold jerseys. They just, to me, it looked too much like, all right, now it's mustard and ketchup.
Right. The Jags tried to do that and it looked like mustard. It was awful. Gold is an accent color only. It's a great accent color, and you can do a lot with it if you use it that way, but that's it. If you try to do more than that, it's not good. And hopefully the 49ers don't.
I mean, gold and black does work, but like you said, they play the Saints this year, so it'd be a poor year to choose to do gold and black.
True. Luis Aguilar says they can't be any worse than the black ones with the red numbers. Those were terrible.
Those are like a love-hate jersey. There's probably like, I would say maybe a third of the fan base that loved them like I do, and everybody else despises them. There's no in between.
Yep. Rob D says gold doesn't work on fabric. It needs to be metallic. Exactly. That's why the helmets look so good, because they look metallic.
I would like to see them do like a metallic gold helmet as part of the alternate. That would be cool.
I could be up for that necessarily. I would be up for a silver helmet like they used to have. If they wanted to like go way back,
no, because then it ends up looking like Ohio State.
Well, that is the danger that you would have to avoid. But all right. So the 49ers schedule is out. They don't play a single team coming off a bye, which is fantastic. It looks like because of that their rest differential is not going to be nearly as bad as it was. They play 5 primetime games. They do have some early body clock games, but I feel so much better about their schedule this year than last year. It's not even close.
Yeah, I would say it's about as favorable of a schedule as you can get for the 49ers, because the 49ers do, and West Coast teams in general, have a issue where they're going to have travel problems, because going West Coast to East Coast is much harder than East Coast to West Coast due to the time difference and early body clock and all that. So West Coast teams almost always lead the league in miles traveled. Seattle, San Francisco, the Rams. It used to be San Diego, although I think the Chargers aren't as high anymore because I think that extra 200 miles shifted. They used to be in the top 5 every year. I haven't been seeing them in the top 5 lately. But that is something like you're not going to get a schedule where like, oh, the Niners travel the least of any team. That's not possible. They have a disadvantage from the start when it comes to schedules. So this schedule is, I think, as good as you're ever going to get.
I would concur with that. And I think just looking at it, the hardest stretch comes in the middle of the year. Well, relatively early and middle. Rams, Bucks, Falcons, Texans, Giants, Rams. That's the toughest part of the schedule right there, because you got two division games against the Rams, who are your toughest opponent. You've got a playoff team and a really good coach in DeMeco Ryans, and probably, I wouldn't say one of the best quarterbacks on your entire schedule. Maybe not the best, but one of the best quarterbacks on your entire schedule. And Baker Mayfield, who threw 40 touchdowns last year. Yes, they beat him, but it's not going to be easy. That, I think, is the stretch that's going to define the 49ers season.
Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, they do have the ability to right some wrongs with the easiest part of the schedule, which would be Carolina, Cleveland, bye week, Tennessee. Like they should sweep all three of those, which means if they can go into that 3-game stretch where they're like 500, winning those three puts them in playoff position. So they can right some wrongs with that stretch. But I do think the final 3 games are potentially going to end up in retrospect looking like, oh yeah, that was a really hard way to finish the schedule, because it's the Colts, who could be a playoff team, the Bears, who could rise because it looks like they got a quarterback, and they obviously hired the most sought after head coaching candidate this year. So if he's the real deal, the Bears could be a real issue, a difference maker in the NFC. And then you got obviously Seattle.
I disagree about the Colts, but I think the last two, yeah, those I would agree with you on those. I don't think the Colts are going to be any good. I think Anthony Richardson stinks. I think Daniel Jones stinks.
I'm
But
not that high on them, but I do think they have talent everywhere else to where if either one of those quarterbacks can be, above average, they would be right in the playoff mix.
that'll be another tough test for the run defense, right? With Jonathan Taylor. So, yeah, we'll have to see. I do like that the one positive aspect of the bye in week 14 is just when the rookies might be hitting that rookie wall, they get the week off. And that might be massive for this team because they're going to need so many contributions from those rookie players.
Yeah, that's definitely an aspect. I had not thought about that, but that is rookie wall typically is right around 12 to 14 weeks is what most rookies say, because your college season is usually 11, 12 games. So they're not used to pushing past that. So that is advantageous. I will say this. I would much, much rather have a very late bye week than a very early bye week.
Agreed.
I don't like week 5 bye weeks. Obviously in the middle is the best, I knew they were not going to have that because they've had it 2 years in a row. They had week 9 2 years in a row. I knew it's either going to be early or late. And if I remember correctly, they had early prior to the 2 in the middle. So I was expecting a late bye week.
The last time they finished the season against the Seattle Seahawks, we all remember what happened. That was 2019 on the Sunday Night Football game where Dre Greenlaw stonewalled the Seahawks on the 1-yard line for the number 1 seed in the NFC. That year, the 49ers had a week 4 bye, which is the earliest bye you can get. And that's why it was so important for them to get the number 1 seed, because they were exhausted, because they had been playing every week since week 4. And they needed that first round bye because they were dead. And they ultimately got it. And we know they went to the Super Bowl. This year, having the bye in week 14, it'll be a little bit of a different situation. You won't have, obviously, that same thing. Not that I don't want them to get the number 1 seed, of course, obviously, please do. But it was a little bit of a different situation. But that's why you would prefer the late bye to the very early bye, because the very early bye, why they have anybody starting to take a bye week in week 4, I will never understand.
I'm not going to lie. I would not be opposed to doing it similar to what the English Premier League does. Now, obviously, you're not going to take a long break like they do, but I wouldn't be opposed to saying, all right, everybody plays 8 games, and then everybody has the week off, and then you play 9 games. And you have the trade deadline during that week off.
Interesting. Trade deadline during the week off, so everybody can just focus on making deals.
Exactly. And so you still stay in the news. You're still right there in the forefront. You push teams to say, hey, we're giving you this bye week with the trade deadline. It should be more advantageous to you to go trade for somebody. So you try to push teams to want to do deals. And then everybody has equality. Like there's no, oh, this team had this bye week, this team had that bye week. And there's no questioning on how unfair it was.
I could get on board with that. You know what, Levin? You're right. How about that?
I used to be right, I should say. International games have changed things. You need a bye week after an international game.
A lot of people think that we're dismissing the Cleveland Browns too easily because we haven't won in Cleveland since 1984. Well, how many games have they played in Cleveland since 1984?
Once every 8 years.
That's not, it's not as damning as it sounds. And yes, the Browns did beat them in 23. They did. Jake Moody missed a damn 35-yard field goal that would have won the game, but Cleveland did win. but they had a better quarterback situation, I feel like. Who was their quarterback that year? I can't even remember.
Yeah, because Watson was hurt and they went to somebody else.
That was it PJ Walker? Oh my God.
Oh,
It
it was. Yeah,
was
yeah.
PJ
'Cause
Walker.
I remember us talking about going into that, like, it's PJ Walker, they're gonna win.
Diego says, how many players remain from that 1984 game? Well played, Diego. Yeah, PJ Walker, 18 of 34 for 192 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, and he won.
Yeah. Hence, wins and losses are not necessarily a reliable stat for a quarterback.
Yes. By the way, we were talking about the brand refresh before we go. Stephen Duckett, YouTube channel member, says Raj posted a video about the brand refresh dropping Saturday. I can't wait. I love all that stuff. Logo changes, uniform changes. I love it. So bring it on. I just hope they're good.
I love and hate it at the same time because yes, it's exciting, but I also think the Niners have near perfection when it comes to their jerseys and their logo as is, so I'm a little resistant to change.
What if they brought back that hideous 49ers helmet, that the defunct logo that was
From the
like the logo
90s, yeah.
for a day that
Yeah.
everybody hated, that the backlash was so severe that they immediately got rid of it?
I mean, I know you don't like, for instance, that 49ers that they did for a few years.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I'm stuck with it forever because that's an autographed the catch photo that my wife got me for our first anniversary. So I will always have a reminder of that 49ers rebrand.
Yeah. That's, and look, obviously it's a sacrifice worth making. This is the helmet, by the way, if you're watching the stream, that was the 49ers logo, and then like a week later they changed it because fans hated it and revolted, and it is bad.
They should. Yeah,
It's a gold helmet and it says 49ers in white with black shadow and a red outline. It is hideously bad. Even
I
as a joke,
mean,
I wouldn't want them to bring this back.
I was gonna say, like, it's not just that it looks like it was made in Microsoft Word. It's also like little things that irk you, like the E is blended into the 9 at the start. Like that drives my OCD insane. Like, no, make why is the E coming out of the 9 to where they're together?
Right. It's like they're Siamese twins.
And then like the shading, you got the red shadow behind. Well, it's on top, but then they did a sharp angle corner on a couple spots, yet it's curved in other spots. And then they got it like behind the 9, but that's underneath where they decided not to carry the red underneath the E and the R. So then it's, yeah.
You just look at it, and the first thing that crosses your mind is, this is the best you could do? Like, I'm sure they went through multiple drafts, right? This was the best one?
The best way I can summarize this, because you would never think this is a team logo, not even like Little League. This is not a team logo. This is a way to stylize writing your company. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like a company that doesn't know how to do block lettering for their company name made a sign to put outside their business. That's what it looks like. It looks like a business's sign that they put in front of the business, but done in a way that nobody understands design.
Diego watching says Eddie DeBartolo looks so disappointed
Yeah.
in the helmet presentation photo. Look at the picture. I found the picture of Eddie DeBartolo. He's right. He looks like somebody shot his dog.
Yeah, it's so much worse when you go down to the bottom one and you see the old, like that was the end of the 80s brand. That's when they went away from the iconic. Look at that helmet on the left. That's one of the best helmets of all time.
Yeah, it was bad. So, like, we've seen the bad when it comes to 49ers rebrands. Hopefully, we don't see more of that if it does indeed drop on Saturday. That's going to do it for this edition of the show, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for all your questions and comments in the chat. We really appreciate it. Please like this video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel. I promise you, if this was your first time watching us, give us one more chance, and I promise you, you will like what you hear. Levin, thank you so much. Go damn Niners. We got the schedule. I'm going to spend the rest of the night reading about it. And
Are you going to give a prediction or no? You're going to wait. You're going to save it.
I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it. I want to study a little more, and I will have a prediction.
As if that studying's going to help. It is a guessing game.
Look, some of us want to be accurate and care about our predictions. Some of us just throw things
Yeah.
willy-nilly into the ether.
What did you predict last year?
I have no idea.
Pretty sure you predicted 13 wins. I know it wasn't the Michelle 17 wins.
Right, Michelle predicted a perfect season. Well, technically, that was in her bold predictions. It wasn't her actual prediction, but we did a bold prediction show, and that was bold. I'll give her that.
Yeah, about 11 wins bold.
I don't know why you're poo-pooing my studying. I'm going to study. I'm going to give a 100%.
It doesn't do anything because we don't know anything about any of these teams. Did you think the Niners were going to win 6 games last year? Did you think Washington was going to make it all the way to the NFC Championship? We don't know. It's guessing. So just give your record.
A 100% accurate record prediction, just not on this show. I will do it maybe tomorrow, maybe Friday, before the end of the week. I will have a 100% accurate 49ers record prediction, and you can all just thank me after I give it. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.